Now let's set the record straight. There's no argument over the choice between peace and war, but there's only one guaranteed way you can have peace, and you can have it in the next second: surrender. Admittedly, there's a risk in any course we follow other than this, but every lesson of history tells us that the greater risk lies in appeasement. And this is the specter our well-meaning liberal friends refuse to face, that their policy of accommodation is appeasement. And it gives no choice between peace and war, only between fight or surrender. If we continue to back and retreat, eventually we have to face the final demand, the ultimatum. And what then? When Nikita Khrushchev has told his people, he knows what our answer will be. He has told them that we're retreating under the pressure of the Cold War, and someday, when the time comes to deliver the final ultimatum, our surrender will be voluntary, because by that time, we will have been weakened from within spiritually, morally, and economically. He believes this because from our side, he's heard voices pleading for peace at any price, or better read than dead. Or as one commentator put it, he'd rather live on his knees than die on his feet. And therein lies the road to war, because those voices don't speak for the rest of us. You and I know and do not believe that life is so dear and peace so sweet as to be purchased at the price of chains and slavery. If nothing in life is worth dying for, when did this begin? Just in the face of this enemy? Or should Moses have told the children of Israel to live in slavery under the pharaohs? Should Christ have refused the cross? Should the patriots at Concord Bridge have thrown down their guns and refused to fire the shot heard round the world? The martyrs of history were not fools. The dead who gave their lives to stop the advance of the Nazis didn't die in vain. Where then is the road to peace? Well, it's a simple answer after all. You and I have the courage to say to our enemies, there is a price we will not pay. There is a point beyond which they must not advance. Winston Churchill said the destiny of man is not measured by material computations. When great forces are on the move in the world, we learn they're spirits, not animals. He said there's something going on in time and space and beyond time and space, which, whether we like it or not, spells duty. You and I have a rendezvous with destiny. We'll preserve for our children this, the last best hope of men on earth, or we'll sentence them to take the last step into 1,000 years of darkness.
Welcome back, everyone, to the Logbook podcast, and we are joined with Common Denominator Network this evening, and we have Mr. Chad Candy.
How's it going, Chad?
How's it going? I'm doing pretty good. Feels good here in Florida.
It's absolutely horrific right now here in Houston. It's all sticky
No,
and rainy.
Rainy and sticky, or both, or not at all. So it can't make up its mind.
Sally will be joining us a little bit later. Just in that speech, though, I just wanted to bring up, should Christ refuse the cross? That's very prevalent today. Happy Good Friday, everybody. And I appreciate you joining us on such a sacred day to hear what we have to say. So today what do we have today?
We have Mr. Morgan Luttrell addressing veterans issues with Concerned Veterans for America.
Right.
We were there. We recorded everything for you here tonight, and we're going to bring you everything he said.
Yes, absolutely. Sean Breyer, I have to give you a little bit of a moment here, is that when I was active duty, a friend of mine, when I was in the Wounded Warrior Battalion, made that for us. And it gives me goosebumps every time, especially because I know someone who is in that. And he helped motivate me through some of the most trying times. So I will probably always use that as our show introduction. So, but anyways, we have Morgan Luttrell. I would love to thank our good friends at CVA, which is Concerned Veterans for America. You can go visit them at cv4a.org. They are a fantastic organization that gets in the face of our legislators, writes legislation, and promotes legislation. We gather signatures from all around the United States to help push things like Mission Act. And believe it or not, along with Morgan Luttrell, was one of the main key players with Mesh Act and what we can do for our veteran community. So without further ado, you ready?
Let's get going.
Congressman Luttrell and Jason Beardsley, if they will join me on stage here. Congressman, welcome. Glad to have you here tonight. Russ Durstein, nice to meet you in person. And Jason Beardsley, I believe you know. All right. You guys will have us. Now, unfortunately, we are, hold it. All right, there we go. We have one mic tonight, so I'm going to have a seat with you, and we're going to hand the microphone back and forth. So I'll join you up here on stage for a minute. Oh, we do have 2 mics. Here we go. Nice. That will make my job a whole lot easier. First, I'd like to introduce Jason Beardsley. We'll abbreviate our introduction time tonight. We're going to have the pleasure of being in the company of 2 very special sailors, and Jason also served in the Army. So that's kind of unusual that somebody would do both. I was saved. You were saved. But I'm going to just abbreviate this. Some of the toughest, roughest, ugliest duty there is, these 2 have seen. They've served combat tours, too many to count, have suffered countless losses among friends, and I think I would rather best be served if I let them just say a word or 2 about themselves. But first, Jason Beardsley, and then Congressman Morgan Luttrell. So, Jason.
Okay, thanks. I will keep it short because we've got the honor of being here with the Congressman. But number one, thanks, Russ. I'm also an Ohio, but I live in Virginia now. I'm an Army guy. Started in the Navy because I wanted to be a SEAL. That didn't work out. I went to BUD/S and they kicked me out because I was injured. And then I found the Green Berets, thank the Lord. But this is a rare opportunity. We're going to get to talk to the Congressman, so I'll keep mine short. I had a long career. Did a lot of counterterrorism with JSOC and some intelligence work overseas. And as Russ said, we're some of the ugliest people you'll meet. Or was it the activities? I can't remember. But proud to be here and really honored to be with you folks from Texas. Gave me an excuse to get out of the swamp. And also love that you took that first step forward, volunteered to come out. And then as Russ said, we want to get you down the next few steps and make sure we're holding our members accountable for everything they do with our service members in mind. And with that, I'll just cut my sort of bio short and just welcome our great Congressman, Morgan Luttrell.
Thank you,
Where's he
sir.
from?
I guess I should always lead with go Navy beat Army, but you're a Navy guy too, so
A little torn.
it's not even worth talking about. A lot of familiar faces in here. It's great to see everybody, and especially the new faces. Thank you all for your service. I always say, Mr. Talley, how you doing back there, sir? I always like to thank the spouses as well because they sacrifice just as much as we do, even more. My lovely bride is a living testament to that, and my 2 wonderful sons. I spent 14 years in the Navy and was discharged in 2014. And after I left the Navy, I went back to school to study traumatic brain injury at the University of Texas. This is my passion. And I was actually staying away from the veteran space because I wanted to leave that chapter of my life, but realizing that I spoke the language, and in the research space, and in the medical space, a language barrier exists between veterans, in my opinion. It's getting way back then, there was that language barrier. So God put me on a path to come back to my brothers and sisters, and I really went far, deep, and wide on healthcare in the veteran space, and that catapulted me into my future endeavors, where I actually went up to Washington, D.C. and worked with Secretary Perry, where he wanted to utilize our computing capabilities through artificial intelligence to solve the problems that live underneath our veteran umbrella, like post-traumatic stress, chronic pain, hey sweetheart, addiction, insomnia, and so on and so forth. And as we started to develop, and if you will, peel back the onion on just the underlying issues that veterans face each day, when those issues really ran into the bureaucracy of the VA and just the healthcare machine, it became I became very aware that that is a problem that we needed to address. Fast forwarding the tape after running for Congress and winning, and now representing Texas 8 and all of us here, now on the VA committee. I got to tell you, and we were chatting up earlier, VA veterans healthcare, veterans well-being, the livelihood of veterans is in my bones, like it's in each and every one of yours. And I tell you, I'm blessed to be on that committee and actually the chairman for disability assistance. So a lot of the issues that we have been, a lot of the issues that live in our space and a lot of the issues that a lot of you in here have brought to my attention, I get to address that head on. And if it doesn't live in my committee or my subcommittees, I have access to those individuals on the committee, on the other members on the committee that allow us to push legislation if necessary or hold people accountable. And I promise you, we've been doing that since step off. And if you'll grace me with, let me say, the complexities of veterans, because we're not easy to deal with. Make no mistake about that. Veterans are hard to get your head around. We're hard to wrangle. But just the complexities of it all, because we're so very unique. And what we need after fighting two wars for 20 years. That's a big pizza to eat. Okay, so we're taking small bites, but I think we're gaining ground. And I'll end with that.
Excellent, Congressman. Appreciate it. How many of you have ever attended a CVA town hall or watched?
So just for to let y'all know what committees Morgan Luttrell's is on.
Yep. Is the House Armed Services Committee, the Committee on Homeland Security, and the Committee on Veterans Affairs.
Now, it's very important that he is on the Committee of Veteran Affairs because it has been very Democrat run for a long time. Even I believe the heads of the VHA, which is the hospitals, are heavily Democrat. We've have a very good follower on our Logbook page named Brian Moore, and he's even discussed the political game that the government is doing to us veterans. It's every election cycle.
It is, and the thing that's very special about Morgan as well is that when's the last time we had an actual veteran on the Veterans Affairs Committee?
Really?
We've had some veterans, but the thing is that they don't understand the amount of injuries. Just to give you a big background about Morgan, he was in a helicopter crash and he broke his back and everything, and he pulled through. So he's actually personally had to experience, as he's mentioned here, the travesties of veteran affairs, and I love his determination to shed light on this. When Morgan goes to a VA, he will go in a baseball cap and a T-shirt.
Oh, yeah, he's incognito.
Yeah,
definitely.
I can believe that for sure.
There's no red carpet treatment. He's trying to avoid the red carpet treatment to see how the VA functions normally. Because if he makes an announcement, VA changes real quick.
And
that's going to happen. That's like going into a restaurant or going in somewhere and like undercover boss in a sense.
that's exactly what he does, and I love it. I think that's someone to put himself out in our shoes. I have never seen anyone in the House Committee of Veteran Affairs do that. Let's see, Paul Gunderson. Yeah, he's in the VA to see what they are doing. All Congress should have to use the VA. I agree.
I agree with that 100%.
So y'all got anything else, Dad, or we want to keep going?
Who's the other guy up there? I'm sorry.
He is one of the, I would say he helped with Mission Act. He's dealt with Washington, worked under he's a Trump advisor.
Yeah, he's Mr. Beardsley. Is his name.
Where's he from?
I don't know.
Yeah, I can't tell you where he's from. All I know is he was a Navy SEAL drop and became a Green Beret.
Yeah, he's a bell ringer, as we call it in the Navy. So when you fail,
they say he sits up there and he says that they kicked me out for injury. They don't kick you out of SEALs training. You leave on your own every time.
And you ring the bell. Ding.
Yeah,
they'll talk you into it too sometimes. Yeah. Oh,
I was
Paul
just wondering-
Gunderson said he is, believe he's from Virginia.
Mhm.
I was curious just because he said get out of the swamp for a while. I didn't know if he meant the.
Oh, he's talking about Washington D.C.
I was going to say if he meant the political. That's what I was going to say is I didn't know if he meant this political swamp or like down here in Florida
I mean,
swamp. So.
Yeah, the southern swamps, I believe, are way better climate.
Yeah. There's a lot less garbage too.
Yeah, I could imagine.
All right, are we ready to keep it going?
Yeah, Paul brought up a really good point. You can go ahead and play, and I'll show Paul's got a comment, and then we'll come back to it.
All right.
One on TV or okay, I could go over real quick some of the format that we're looking to do tonight. We're going to cover mostly VA healthcare questions, but we are going to touch a little bit on the foreign policy has on VA and veteran healthcare. But Congressman, if you don't mind, I'm going to point out Vita over here. We're going to have questions that we're not going to be able to get to. We're going to pass those along. And Vita is the Congressman's constituent.
She's my all things Jedi Knight veteran.
Oh, there you go. Jedi.
I kid you not.
I love that. So don't hesitate when this is over if you want to visit with her or kind of get your name on the list for some of these questions. We'd be more than happy to do that. One of the other things that we like to do is to ask questions of our panelists. Jason, that I did not mention, has worked in the VA. He's worked under the Trump administration, has served many different capacities after getting out of the military. And so being able to have some of that expertise on the panel tonight is going to be great. And he also serves on our foreign policy PI team in our network. And so he has a wide range of knowledge-based skills, and we're glad to have him as a senior advisor. So thank you, Jason. So what I want to start off with tonight, Congressman, is the things that we've noticed across the country as we do these tours is the amount of constituent complaints that we've had about the VA lacking in timeliness, not being able to access some of the community care that's provided, the long wait times, many appointment cancellations. Are you experiencing stuff like that here in your district?
Yes, absolutely, and that can be said across the country. And it's a very frustrating problem because it is a living, breathing problem that I've started to do my best to check, break it apart is the best way to say it.
That's the best way.
And our district is very rural, but then we have Cypress, so now we're very high districts. The issues that we're seeing with the individuals in Houston is not the same that we have in San Jacinto or Livingston. And trying to circle the wagons on how to make it effective for everybody is extremely challenging. And I'm not saying that it's impossible, but it is extremely challenging. Because if you break it down to the lowest common denominator, it inevitably goes down to the human factor. A lot of the complaints that we're hearing and a lot of things that the problems is when someone's one-on-one with the phone and you have a veteran that could become, rightfully so, irritated with the system. And so if you start there, then it dies on that very initial phone call. Then when it's lost in the bureaucracy, because the leadership and upper echelon leadership really aren't in tune or in touch with what we deal with when we're calling the VA itself.
Yep.
And when I dig in, Secretary McDonough has been very gracious to answer my phone calls. He answers my phone call every single time I call. If you can believe that's amazing for a cabinet secretary to answer on the other side of the aisle to answer my calls. And I explained to him what my constituents are saying to me. He's like, and he understands it. It's when you get down into the depths of the bureaucracy of the VA itself, it is the largest one in the country. So the problem, yes, it exists. We've worked legislation from out of the Trump administration. And actually, we passed legislation last year as well, and we moved legislation this year. But here's the rub, we don't own both sides of the chamber, so we're at a stall point. I'm hoping eventually, once that legislation starts to move and we can actually look at somebody and hold them more accountable for the lack of discipline, we'll start making headway. But as of now, it's really that bogged down system that we are just trying to chip away at. It's so massive.
Yeah, it really is, and we hear that from congressmen and congresswomen just about everywhere we go. Jason, you were in the Trump administration when there was two major laws passed, the VA Accountability and Whistleblowers Protection Act in 2017, and then 2018 landmark legislation that took the choice program that came out of the Phoenix VA hospital scandal in 2014 and really put some teeth into it. Tell us a little bit what that was like and what it was like being in the VA at the time that rolled out.
Yeah, I think to the Congressman's point and to what CVA intends to do, the Mission Act, as it was called, maintaining internal systems while strengthening outside networks. That's the idea that we would maintain what we had, but also strengthen what's outside the VA, was intended to give veterans a choice such that if they did run into weight problems or if they are having difficulties in their districts, in their locations, they could take that health care outside the community. Now, in all fairness here, we're in Texas, but up in DC, that's a war. Because you're going to war against a bureaucracy that wants more money, wants more labor, brick and mortar institutions. They don't want to lose that money to the outside system. So there's a lot of people that are naturally disposed against allowing the veteran to go out to the community and solve the problem on their own. And what we saw was implementation of the congressionally passed law is not regulation, it's not policy. It's the beginning of policy, it's the beginning of regulation. What that means, I worked for Secretary Wilkie as a senior advisor. And at the top of the VA, someone says, we want this to happen, but it goes out in the country, 50 states wide, plus all the different places we serve around the world. And it's the policy level that you were talking about, Congressman, where we lose fidelity with the workers that don't either understand the law or do not think that the law is in their best interest. What you're doing tonight, what you're doing here, is about bringing your voice as citizens and veterans into that conversation so we can sit in front of panels and be held accountable so that you understand, and you do, but the rest of Congress needs to understand what their role is. It's not just writing the law and passing it, it's oversight. That's what we're missing, and that's where forums like this really actually put the teeth in. So any teeth we put in from a congressional law writing stage gets taken out when it gets to the bureaucracy. So that's the job here, to get it back in.
I walked into my...
Thank you. So, hi, Sally. How are you doing?
Oh, running late as usual, but I'll be all right.
Appreciate
Sorry,
you.
I am late.
No
That's
problem. You're working, and that's respectable. And I'm very encouraged. Living the
Well,
life.
making sure these grocery store shelves are staying full.
Amen.
Amen to that.
Good luck with that too.
So I know that you've come in. So we're going to give you a little breakdown on who is sitting next to Morgan. It is, believe, Jason. He is with CVA, but he's also one in the Trump administration, helped with Mission Act. And we'll see.
Jason Beardsley is his name.
Yeah. So this is a Concerned Veterans for America town hall. And what do y'all want to start with? That was pretty loaded.
That was quite a bit to get through. Yeah. So what stood out to you guys?
Well, I guess it's kind of what y'all are already used to, and that's kind of like them just taking stuff out of it when it comes to bureaucracy and stuff. But I know that's a pretty basic thing that they like to do. And I liked how you were talking about how he goes to the VAs and kind of pulls the undercover customer boss, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
Undercover boss, yeah.
And then him talking about stuff being a war in DC that should be just not really common sense, but I guess common care for
Decency.
our veterans. Yeah, common decency to where letting people go outside the VA to be able to get stuff done. Right.
Well, I liked how he said break it apart rather than navigate it, because it's a dang near impossible to navigate the VA.
It is impossible to navigate the VA.
I like the smash approach, but put politely.
Yeah, the break apart. Hulk break apart.
Because I will say this, that he did talk a lot about the people inside the VA, and really they are out of touch with us veterans. If we do call in, I know Paul Gunderson here, actually talking with him, is that we're completely the peasants.
Oh yeah, yeah. We are
How-
we are second class citizens as soon as we stroll through that across that threshold.
How dare a veteran talk to me?
Yeah.
is how.
Well,
I
heck, at least you're at second class. I'm third and fourth class. I don't even get bathrooms sometimes.
Wow. Well,
I'll be right back. So
Oh, okay.
All right, Jack.
y'all go ahead.
I mean, it's so bad they had to pass a law, a federal law, that mandates that we have bathrooms provided for us. So I'm right there with you. I know what it's like not to get the common decency and the common courtesy stuff, but the nurses and the doctors, they have to detach at some point, but they do not have to act like you're a piece of meat.
Right, because you've the reason why I think you are very prevalent to this conversation is because you've actually worked for the government as a CNA.
As CNA, yeah,
in a government-run facility, so you understand the red tape and the bureaucracy, and I think it's very important to have your opinion in this conversation. But I did want to give you all some examples of what goes on in the VA, so it's just not complaining. So in certain instances, like if you call anyone at the VA and you ask them, can I have your name? That way you can verify, or you can point the finger and say, well, such and such person says this. They will say, well, why do you want my name for? Well, you are a public employee, a taxpayer employee. So yes, I need that. Because here's the thing is that they don't want to be held accountable. So they don't give you your names, right? And then what they do, secondly, like this, when you sit there and they send you out to community care and they give you the doctor that they send you to, well, in some cases is like, that's not the right doctor that I need. And then they'll turn around and lie and say, oh, well, I'm going to type in that you didn't want to see in community care. And it's like, no, I wanted a doctor, but you have to give me the right one. And so they cancel the doctor appointment completely. Then you have to start the whole process over.
And it may take 3 to 6 months to get another appointment.
Oh, yeah. The VA, that's a good point. Brian, I can't see his comment.
Yeah, it's
shrink the video down, please.
Yeah, okay.
So we can see his comment.
I don't know if that'll change it or not.
Yeah. Paul Gunner said, yeah, the VA is going to change their motto. They did change their motto and they updated it. Remember?
Yeah. So I don't remember what they changed it to, but they changed it from a very prevalent Abraham Lincoln quote because it was.
Here it is. To fulfill President Lincoln's promise to care for those who have served our nation's military and their families, caregivers, and survivors. When it used to be just a quote to care for our men in service.
Yeah, care for the exact verbiage. I don't want to
misquote. Of the time.
Yeah, I don't want to misquote.
It was a time appropriate quote.
Yep.
Okay,
that's
the history, but you're going to sit here and spend hundreds of thousands of dollars on a freaking sign versus actually getting us care. This is ridiculous.
No, it's the same thing the school boards do. School systems are doing.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, it's like, okay, I did some good here. You see, look at my little inclusivity treatment and everything.
Yeah.
See, that's how I care. Here, Paul said, and as soon as they know that they've done something wrong, they put a flag against you, so you are wrong, and it protects their job. Absolutely.
Yeah. The thing is, one, I thought that was the whole thing with government jobs is that it was extremely hard to get fired from.
It is extremely hard to get fired, and that was part of the scandals with Trump is that he put a system in place that would keep people more accountable. And even he couldn't even catch it all the time because what they would do, they caught a scandal in the later years of his term. It was called recycling the leadership. So that was a scandal that happened So they would sit here and take one director at one VA and then move them to another VA and then to another VA. Because I already know our Houston director, he came, what is it, from Kansas or
The thing was
Missouri?
Kansas.
Yeah.
Kansas.
And then
Well, and the bad thing is then they can say, oh, he's been removed from that facility, leading you to believe that he's been fired when he's just been transferred.
Yeah.
Yes, they never say the word fired. I've noticed that. Well, they no longer work with us in this department is always the verbiage that they use.
Yeah,
So,
it's that extra special verbiage.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I did want to bring up something here. Let me look at my notes. Sorry. So Morgan brought up another point, and I think, Paul, you kind of caught on to it, is that veterans are rightfully angry. And, that's where the red flag happens, is that, we're just gaslit so much.
Mhm.
We ask for things over and over. We usually start polite because we do know there's another person on that phone, but we're gaslit and gaslit and gaslit.
And then we get so angry and they don't understand why.
Yeah.
They want to act like that.
Yeah,
Well,
they want to throw drugs at you to keep you sedated and mellow and I don't care.
No, you come because they do this like musical chairs game with healthcare providers and nurses and staff, and then you're going there for the 10th or 15th time, and you're angry as heck going to this staff member and you're saying, you all have done this to me for such and such years, for 5, 6, 7 years. And they said, well, I didn't do that to you. Like, this facility's done this to me. You are part of it. And they don't understand that.
Yeah, they take it personal.
Well,
And-
they have to understand that it's the organization itself that's done it to them. They may have seen 20 or 30 different doctors before they got to the one they blew up on.
Exactly. And the thing is, you can't be blind to that and not work there, because I know several people that work there and they're good people, but they always quit. The good ones always quit.
Good ones always do.
But
they get better jobs.
I did want to bring up to something, as Jason, he mentioned the VA Whistleblower Act. Didn't we just watch a Senate hearing, or no, a committee hearing where they said, oh, well, we don't need that anymore. We're good. I think we handle it on our own right now. They just happened. That was like 2 weeks ago.
Oh.
Wow.
So the VA's favorite saying is, let's not focus on the things that happened in the past. Yes, that's gaslighting. Total gaslight. Yeah. And then everyone, in case you do know that the CVA is trying to really help with the Mission Act. They've exposed several clinics. They've exposed the wait time scandals are back again. What they have instead of is a patient indication date. And we've addressed it before. Just go back and watch some of our podcasts. And if you have any questions, we'll give you the link to that so you can get in detail where we cover the patient indication date and also the script. There's a script.
Yeah, there's a script that the community care people use whenever you call to not give you the care that you need.
Right.
Wow.
Absolutely. Well, let's go ahead and continue this.
All right.
In Conroe, CBOT, Veterans Hospital, and there were still mask mandates. Mm-hmm. And that afternoon, I sent a message out to the mass, and the secretary called me the next day. And I said, sir, you're treating my veterans differently than you treat regular civilians, and we don't tolerate that down here. The mask mandate needs to go away. And he was like,
Yeah.
Mr. Luttrell, give me 2 weeks. I'll have that problem solved for you. In 2 weeks to the day, he did. I saw the guidance come out. He showed it to me. A month later, it made it out to the CBOT. So as it goes from directive from the secretary down and into that organization, and it gets lost, and then it takes people like myself and the rest of you to say, what's happening here? Why are we still dealing with this? And then another phone call will happen. And again, the size of the bureaucracy slows the progress. There was another point. The VA, the VFW. We had a committee hearing. My committee last week came in, and they were opposed to private. Okay, hear me out here. Okay, private for-profit organizations that help veterans navigate the system to get their disability ratings. The VA and VFW and some others are opposed to not that concept, but they want more regulation on top, because and I won't doubt this, there are those that take advantage of us, but there also are those that do not. And it is a volunteer program to go, and that's something that we're dealing with up in DC right now. Is like, okay, so the VA says we got it, but I talked to an organization that does it for a living that deals with 250,000 veterans a year. How do you have it? That's a problem. And those are the things that we're dealing with today, actually.
Well, one of the reasons why the Mission Act was so popular and was used greatly was because when you had to travel a certain distance or had to wait a certain amount of time, which was the big problem, the wait time, the wait lists were extraordinary. The concept.
Okay, what did y'all think of his answers?
I think it was a bunch of happy horse shit. Because what was the difference between the veterans from Vietnam and the veterans in Desert Storm?
Yeah,
There's no difference.
Yeah, I agree. It's that I consider like the VA like I take it more like a science experiment.
Mhm.
It failed.
Yes. Right.
Okay. So my thing is that usually as where science is concerned, you're going to sit there and start over. So,
Well, it's like, oh, we'll just shove some disability at them so they don't have to work, and we can give them some drugs so we can keep them looped up on la-la. We'll just throw stuff at them. We're not going to fix the problems. We're not going to help them. We're just going to throw money and medication at them.
Sounded kind of to me like that's how what he was saying at the end of the line. That's what you get, is because there's so much bureaucracy with it.
yeah,
You start out with something that's supposed to, okay, this is supposed to be pain treatment. Okay, this is supposed to do this. And then it comes down and funnels down to where, like, okay, we spent so much money on this on this plan that now we can't even do it anymore. So we need more funds to put in more bureaucracy, because who really needs this pain treatment,
Yeah, that's a funny point. That's a point that I've been noticing is like they won't throw it away because they already spent that much money on it. And that's what it is. It sounds, I would say that's a bit female to me. But I already spent all that money on it. I can't get rid of it. That's kind of how it sounds to me.
Mm-hmm.
But I did have to bring up something a bit controversial. I do love Morgan Luttrell. It's not something he did. Is that the VA lied to even Morgan Luttrell, because we did call and we cold called the VA. And we have a recording, and we will be turning that over to our congressman, that the patient advocates knew about the mask mandates, fully admitted it, but refused to do it at our VA medical system.
Really?
Yes,
Mm-hmm.
we did. We did get that.
Is that what Paul's talking about down here, or
Yeah.
the last one, or similar to what?
Yeah, it's similar, but I do also. So Mr. Cunderson, that's in our comments here, he did go to AVA, and they told him to leave because of the masks. And so Mr. Paul Gunderson was one of the veterans that is responsible for removing mask mandates. But we did get more messages from other veterans here on the logbook, and in other states, they're having the same issue, like up in Ohio, of removing the mask mandates, and it's still ongoing across the nation. So tell me that the secretary of the VA is really working hard on this. If he was really working hard and said, oh, it'll be in 2 weeks, you would see a consistency around the board. Now, when you remove the masks, there is a stipulation. Your COVID-19 level cannot be high. It has to be low to moderate. We haven't been high in a while in Houston.
Long time.
And I know that up in Montgomery County, the clinics have been low to moderate. And there's also another problem, is that there is a bullying, I would say, among the staff too. The hierarchy does bully the employees as well, because the Conroe VA clinic has had low whereas the downtown hospital has been high. The hospital will start bullying the clinics into submission as well. And you actually have, I know our Tomball clinic, oh my gosh, the staff is amazing there. The loveliest people work there.
Mm-hmm.
I actually like the Tomball VA.
The Tomball has great staff, terrible doctors. I would say
Right.
that. When you go over to Katy, they have terrible staff, great doctors. So it's.
But even the staff will question, like, why are we doing this? I've actually seen the mandates, but the big hospitals will go against it, and it's like, well, if you don't do what you say, you're going to lose your job.
It's all about government funding. If they don't do what the government wants, they lose their funding. So they have to bully the little guys into submission to keep everybody in line.
Everyone's miserable at the VA, the doctors and the staff. It's not a healthy environment for anybody.
I think it's a big, well, in my opinion, I have no evidence to back this up. I think it could be a big reason why you have all these botched surgeries, because you have these doctors who are just bound by red tape, not thinking they're actually helping anybody.
I think it's more of that. It's because it's so bad, you can only hire bad doctors. And then there's Obama's Second Chance Act. That one's a very dangerous thing. Let's go ahead and continue this.
Yeah.
Was if I could go see a local doctor that could see me quicker, didn't have to go as far as West Texas, so the drive times are probably much like your district here in the rural part. It didn't make sense to pass 3 or 4 different medical centers on my way to Big Spring that could treat me locally and see me faster. And it was very popular until COVID hit, and then we saw the bureaucracy start trying to take away some of those choice things that were going on. And they took it out of the doctor's hands and the clinician's hand and put it up in the hands of the bureaucracy again. That's not the way the law was written. So one of the things that we're seeing, Congressman, is that there's been FOIA documents released, that we've been digging into those and seeing what those say. I understand there's some congressional investigations that are going on, but we're finding, just like in the Phoenix VA hospital scandal, that there's manipulation of wait times going on. There's stats that are being saying, no, I've not waited, 100 days, you've only waited 20 days, and finding out that they've actually have plans to be able to manipulate the statistics. I'm just curious, from both of your can do more of as far as investigating the VA and not upholding the 2018 one?
So let me be very clear of my role and responsibility as a congressional member. I pass legislation. I make laws. I can't take anybody to court. I can't put anybody to jail. I can't take my belt off and give them a whooping. I can't do that. Okay? So my job is to hold them accountable by having a hearing having them in front of us, and have us question them and find the facts. Okay? That's what my job is. And I'm very careful now as a new member, and I've only been doing this for a short period of time, but I have to be very careful what I say, because I can be held accountable when it's time for them to have a hearing with me. And if I say, hey, you're going to jail, I'm done. I have nothing else. I can't do anything else. I'm out. That's conflict. So I'm very careful about how I word things. When it comes to holding the individuals accountable, I love cold calling my facilities. I just walk right in. I cold called the reserve unit in the district today. But you are my eyes and ears. And that's how it has to be. I'm only one man, and they got me in DC so much, it'll make the head spin. But how we are able to answer those questions and hold them accountable is if you walk in my door and say, this is happening, or you call, or you write, or you walk up to me when I'm in a restaurant, or I'm at the stoplight. That's your job as well. I need that, because I can't be everywhere at once. But once we do catch a thread, and we start to pull it, if it leads somewhere, hey buddy, guess what? We're gonna fix it.
Jason,
I have to say that I have never heard a congressman ever say, You are my eyes and ears, and you need to talk to me. I'm used to getting the door slammed in my face.
I'm
Yeah.
impressed by that. I really
Me
am.
too. And then also knowing that he is listening to everybody too.
Yeah.
So
Someone,
Yeah, he is.
a representative who's actually representing
Yeah,
somebody.
exactly.
Yeah,
yes,
strange.
yes.
Just
So-
like welcome to the Twilight Zone.
So I was just looking up stuff, and this is a little off the topic of Morgan Luttrell, but this was something I guess that was written in 2015 or something by Phil Rowe. I guess he was a Republican from looks like from Tennessee,
Mhm.
and he put on here, he was like VA. We were talking about VA employees getting fired.
Mhm.
And I was just looking up waste and abuse, and it says VA employee is arrested and ultimately convicted for her role in an armed robbery. The VA clerk assigned to the VA medical center this is in San Juan, Puerto Rico, was arrested for a role in an armed robbery committed in Puerto Rico in 2015 with an accomplice. According to the media reports, the VA employee was held in jail on $100,000 bond and had to miss work at the Puerto Rico VAMC while awaiting trial, but was later allowed to return to work at the VA in unclassified duties until her trial was finished.
Well, innocent until proven guilty.
Well, here's another one.
I think the more recent one that happened was the doctors or the staff that have a criminal record for drug abuse and drug addiction or currently have these charges for drugs that work in the pharmacy.
Well, this was from 8 years ago. So, I mean, this is just something I pulled up. And here's another one that says VA employee crashes government car and kills passenger while under the influence. VHA Voc rehab specialist out of Central Alabama Veterans Healthcare System crashed a government car and the passenger ended up dying. He tried to lie to the police to show as to how the car crashed, but was later indicted for a DUI. As of September 14th, 16 months after the incident, he is still working at the VA.
Well, so you see how I think you're giving a really good example. In the past, you see these articles; they're very old. These things are still ongoing, but no one reports on them.
Right. Well, that's what I was kind of getting at was,
you have to go to the OIG reports and the Government Accountability Office reports. I mean, there's fraud. Oh my gosh, there's so much fraud. And you're talking about $500,000, millions of dollars worth of fraud coming out of the VA. And, here in Houston, we are the largest VA healthcare system. When COVID-19 happened, we got majority of the money. And what happened is they canceled all in-person appointments. They treated veterans or they treated civilians. They canceled 19.7 million appointments. They didn't try to reschedule to these veterans. You have people with, cancer patients, or in my case, pregnant. And then they're like, oh, there's telemedicine.
Yeah, that I find a lot of that telemedicine ridiculous. So
I get it. Go ahead, Sally.
How are they going to take your temperature through television?
Or your blood pressure?
How are they going to take your blood pressure or your pulse? How are they going to look at a lesion?
Smell-o-vision is what it is.
Smell-o-vision, yeah.
Put that boil up to the smell-o-visor. Just
go to the pharmacy and say, hey, pharmacist, who's 2 hours away from being a doctor, by the way, you're registered licensed pharmacist, and ask him what you need to do.
Oh, look at this. Paul responded to you, Chad. Look at what he said. He said there was a VA employee that was convicted for drugs, put in jail, and the VA didn't fire him. No, it is impossible to get fired from.
So he was still
getting. How a lot of these stories are. There's like 10 stories, and this was, I think, just from 2014 to 15.
Oh yeah, and they don't report it on them because everyone's used to it. Oh, that's the same thing.
Here's one right here. It says a VA employee at the Central Alabama Veterans Health Care Center took a veteran who was a recovering drug addict to a crack house where he purchased illegal drugs for the veteran, as well as purchased him a prostitute. The VA also borrowed a VA check from the veteran. The employee also borrowed a VA check from the veteran. The employee was still employed at the VA well over a year after the incident until they were finally able to remove him.
Well,
Paul said that's the one he's talking about.
yeah. Well,
Yeah. But I will say this. I appreciate your thoughts, Paul, on that. But he did break a point. So you can't have a baby, but you can have an abortion. They were working. Yeah, and that's the ridiculous part about this all is that they were working so hard during the pandemic for abortion and not saving life. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, see, this is still from 2015. A senior VA employee, that has to do with the appointments and stuff. A senior VA employee at the West Los Angeles VAMC was identified to have purged approximately 40,000 veterans care requests without conducting a medical review as a means to hide wait times. A senior official was also testified that appointment wait times were about 4 days when the VA's own documents revealed the wait times in Los Angeles to be an average of 48 days and some as long as 90 days.
Yeah, but that's 5 years ago. But even today, the media is not talking about it, even though the government hearings and everything that happened, within the last 2 weeks, even Morgan Luttrell was there. What are the wait times? And we'll get back to you. I don't have those numbers. And it's been going like that since the pandemic. They are absolutely downright refusing to answer those numbers. And I believe that they're even going as high as the White House to get it. And even
I'm sorry. I know my granddaughter's father, who is a veteran with PTSD. Most of his wait times were 3 months.
Yeah.
That's not unheard of.
If he got sick, we can see you in 45 to 60 days, or let's go 90 days.
Well,
by then you're either dead or well. And that's sad to say.
One of the leadership individuals at the VA that was questioning Congress for the wait times is now the director of Vision 16, which is where Houston reports to not lose her job. She got a promotion. Wow.
Whoa.
That doesn't surprise me, really.
It doesn't. It should be shocking. I was in Austin this week, and when I talked to one of the staff and of the Texas representatives here, and I showed them all what's going on in the VA, they said, I am absolutely horrified and shocked. But what's unbelievable to me that this is happening, but because it's Veterans Affairs, it's believable. To hear that from a representative in their office was absolutely, it just hit me. It was mortifying to hear that.
Now here's the thing about Paul Gunderson's last comment. So
let me put it up on the screen.
Yeah, and the thing is, getting fired means you're not doing your job. Staying in the same position means you were just there. Pretty much, you were doing your job. And getting promoted means you did exceedingly well at what you were supposed to do. So, did this person in leadership, who was questioned before Congress, do what they were supposed to do and was exceptional at it?
I doubt it.
No, forget what the VA says.
You're asking that to Paul?
I'm asking.
You're asking us was she promoted?
I'm asking she was promoted for doing what she was supposed to do. What she was supposed to do was doing the messed up shit that she's doing in the VA.
Yeah, exactly. And then also,
I get it.
Also, if you do that, then you get her off the floor too.
Exactly what she was put in place.
Yeah, she was doing exactly what she was supposed to do, which was BS her way through
Congress
and she got a promotion for it.
Yeah,
and then
like that one lady who did that one hearing, she didn't even have the right education background on the
yeah.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. All right,
Also, she wouldn't be on the floor anymore getting questioned.
yeah.
Let's get going on this, Chad. All right.
We'll keep it short because we've got the honor of being here with Congressman. But number one, thanks, Russ. I'm also an Ohio boy, but living policy level that you were talking about, Congressman, where we lose fidelity with the workers that don't either understand the law or do not think that.
That's a problem. And those are the things that we're dealing with today, actually.
Well, one of the reasons why the Mission Act was so popular and was used greatly was because when you had to travel a certain distance or had to wait a certain amount of time, which was the big problem, the wait time.
The individual's accountable. I love cold calling my facilities. I just walk right in. I cold call the reserve unit in my. So mental health is not only what I study.
To the fact that the VA gives you choice when they say you can have choice. And one of the things that we are noticing is Congressman Stubbe and Senator Blackburn has drafted legislation that they're looking at that we fully support. We highly encourage you all to look at. And that's basically to take the decision point and make it more like the GI Bill, where you are the center of deciding where you choose and where you go. And so there are two major pieces of legislation that would enable you, just like somebody who's retired, who has VA healthcare, has TRICARE insurance, you don't have to go and get permission. You just exercise the right that you already have and go do that. You can use the VA if you want to, or you can go and use the private market as you see fit without having to ask for permission to the VA to let you go do that. One of the key areas that we're seeing where this is really, really critical is VA mental health and the suicide problems we're having. Just in El Paso, within this year, we had a veteran commit suicide in the VA parking lot out of sheer frustration with the mental health capacity they've got.
Yep.
And so one of the things that we're excited about is the ability to access mental health care and have that passed into law without having to go through bureaucracy. It's there, access it, you don't have to ask permission to do that. What do you two think of something that has that much choice to it, that much power?
Tuesday of last week, I put one of my teammates in Arlington Cemetery who died the month previous in a parachuting accident. And as we were leaving the service, a gentleman by the name of Mike Day, Senior Chief Mike Day, he was a veteran, and he was on an operation in Iraq, got shot 27 times. And 27 times on one op and survived. Matter of fact, not only did he survive, the room that he was in, when he got shot 27 times, when he came to, he killed all the guys, 4 of them, in the room with him in hand-to-hand combat. He killed himself the day that we put the other one in the ground. Wow. Survived 27 rounds, and the round that took him was his own. And mental health is not only what I study, but it lives and breathes. You know, I see it, it's in my face every day. The one thing that I get questioned on is mental health. How do we fix this mental health problem? And I was talking about this today. The act itself, giving us the ability to go out anywhere and get that should pass without problem. That should be without question. And actually, we've been discussing that on the floor with colleagues on both sides of the aisle, and I don't see any pushback on it. So that's a positive. But you have to appreciate the complexities of the human body when it comes to emotional and cognitive instabilities, because we are all different. Every single one of us in this room, every single one of us on this planet are completely different. Emotionally, physically, there's no brain alike. That's a snowflake. That's why you're so unique.
Oh, thank God.
And as we address these problems in mental health, until we figure out how this 3-pound gelatinous substance between our ears works, we probably will never figure out how to solve these problems, okay? But as veterans, when we're back in our communities, when we're in our tribes, keep an eye on each other, right?
Yep.
But yes, it'll be an amazing piece of legislation. Both of them will be amazing pieces of legislation.
Yeah, I think that, as you say, the complexities of the brain are such that we're going to be chasing some physiological problems for a long time. But from my optic and what I saw in the previous administration was an effort to get the money into the communities where treatment really begins. And with mental health, It's such a heart condition. It's such a metaphysical condition. And in spite of the fact that we have these physiological weights upon us, you look at what the Navy just did inside service with a lot of suicides on active duty, and they're reaching out to their chaplain corps to try to staff them up to make sure they get chaplains engaged with these sailors, because they know, or at least suspect, that there has to be something more than just the physiological that we treat, otherwise we're going to lose the soul. Because suicide, you know, at its end is always about desperation and isolation. And so if we're not treating the conditions or the cause, the origins of that, we're not going to get close to finding out the physical aspects of it. So for that, the money that comes from the VA that's assigned or aligned against every service member, every veteran, ought to be able to go where that veteran believes the care is best suited for them. And again, that goes back to the act and community. So,
because we're trying to figure, so our generation's suicide rate is completely vertical in veterans. In first responders, it's even higher. World War II suicide rate was not. Korea was not. Vietnam, our forefathers, their suicide rate was exponentially higher, and ours is off the charts. Why? What changed? The act of war itself, that's what we can't put our finger on. What is it that's driving this? What happened to us that made this so? And that's what we're trying to figure out. And until we do that, we're not going to be able to walk that back. That's why it's going to take all of us to keep your ears and eyes open.
Well said, Sean. Well said. Leadership. You know,
well, it's leadership, but they also need to get the government out of everybody else's business and keep our own people here.
Yeah,
I understand we have to go out and we have to help other countries, but the terms of war are much different in this era than it was when I was a kid.
We're not fighting to win anymore, is what it is.
I mean, we're just there to spend money and
Yeah.
We're policing. We're policing the world.
That's
That's all we're doing. We're not fighting in our own interests. We're fighting in the interest of others.
Well, I do have some personal thoughts here. So I have a acquaintance of mine named Lee Spiller, who is on the civil rights. He handles civil rights cases, especially when it comes to mental health. And he does it with schools. And the biggest thing that he's come up with, like with school shootings and the common denominator on these suicidal tendencies, is the medication. One, we already know that the VA abuses medication. One, when you get on a psych med, it's only supposed to be for a certain amount of time. You're not supposed to be taking Seroquel for 3 years.
Right.
Okay? That's not okay. And they these mental health meds like crazy. I know, like when I was in, here's venlafaxine. That's something that they gave me because they were sitting there saying that there's nothing wrong with me. There's my pain subconscious. And then, I had that done. There was something there. And that's what they're doing, is that they are giving people these psych meds instead. And it's the Band-Aid. That's what it is. It's the Band-Aid, and we don't fix the problem. And what I think it's the meds, and then how the VA actually changed as well. Did you know that there used to be a farm almost adjacent to every single VA, and that while the people were waiting, they would go to the garden or to the farm, and that's why VAs have gardens still, and they would work it. And there's such a healing connection in gardening and working of the land, and I believe that was some of it too, because after World War II, people went back to their farms. They did go back to their communities. They went back to have a family. And I also think too is the culture of today. What's the point in coming back to if you're going to marry a whore?
Yeah,
We'll leave you for something else. I mean, there's no there's nothing to really look forward to some of these guys because there's no morals and ethics. There is no, the family unit is shamed upon, you know, and if a man speaks out that he wants that up, he's a misogynist. It's a cultural sickness.
Well, it's like when my granddaughter's father was over in Afghanistan. He was told, you don't interfere with anything cultural. You just make sure that we don't have any terrorists near us. And he's like, how do you identify a terrorist? They all look like normal people. Who do you know who you're fighting? Who do you know? How do you know? And then when they came to their cultural issues, that there were things that I probably am not going to talk about that involve children, they were told to turn a blind eye. And that was part of his PTSD.
Yeah, that happened a lot in Afghanistan, you know, when or the Middle East. There was they would bring the allies would bring little boys to the tent.
Yeah, they were told to kill that natural instinct to protect the child.
Yes, and I didn't these
and that triggers.
One second. So there's actually a tactic that these terrorists use. So they would use children to clear landmines, clear out fields of landmines. They would hand these kids little toy plastic keys, and it's gruesome. I'm not going to go any further into it. And the thing is, it all plays in part to these children could be the ones that are going to be strapped with bombs, could have weapons on them, and you have to get rid of that instinct if you want to be accountable for your life and the life of the person next to you.
Well, I actually was referring to something that actually is very recent. I know it's in this wartime period. Do you remember when these American officers saw what was going on with our I remember this. I don't know if y'all guys, let me jog your memory, is that they stopped our allies from raping children. And then they got charged with it in the military. Do y'all remember that?
No,
I do. I do remember that was I think I was still in when that happened. And it was a big, huge scandal within the military. Heck, I don't even know if you were in it.
No, I don't think it was.
But yeah, I remember something like that. Hey, you want to look that up real quick?
Sure.
Because I did remember that. And we'll just
see, my granddaughter's father was part of that when they were told to turn a blind eye while they were raping children, you know, and that really jacked with him.
I could imagine.
Yeah.
I mean, one of his triggers was hearing his daughter cry. I mean, he would just go berserk.
We have a buddy that has that with his kids, unfortunately, and it gives him problems of discipline. But and you know, here's the thing: it's important of the family unit as well to be supportive, because the wife doesn't understand what's going on, and she's not also getting counseling. I think there should be some kind of counseling for spouses, because you know he has I would say a fear of over discipline, so he doesn't discipline. But then she's more liberal, and she doesn't like the way that he goes about it either. And unfortunately, the children are now preteens, and they're a lot of trouble. And the thing is that you have someone who didn't have a moral foundation as a female, and then you have someone that is afraid to over punish their kids because they saw abuse on kids. And I think there should have been more. Here's the thing: there's not any marriage counseling really at the VA whatsoever.
There's not,
and it's constantly breaking down.
Well, that's because unfortunately the military is promoting sexual promiscuity to get those endorphins released, and use that as a drug to tranquilize the troops, so to speak.
I think it's not even the troops; it's the society as a whole. I'll be
Well,
honest with you. I
it-
was there. The women were promiscuous on their own without needing the help from the Navy.
Well, they don't verbally say don't get married, but they're not just overly supportive of marriage.
Oh no, this is what it is. I heard this.
And they're really less supportive of the family.
No. I never saw that at all. Did you? This is what I saw in the military. Don't get married for money. Because a lot of these guys are our age would get there and say, hey, I'll get BAH, I can leave the barracks. And then that's how they got out. I think the number one focus that I saw during my period is like, okay, yeah, you can get married, but don't get married within 2 weeks. Okay, that was a big thing. Don't marry a stripper. You had to say things like that. And then don't marry for money just because you want to get out of the barracks.
Yeah.
That's actually what our era saw. In fact, we saw it that, it was almost an accommodation to get married and stay married. You were a chief and you didn't have 3 divorces. You were a baddie. Right? That's how it was when we were in.
Yeah, and thing is, I'm finding all this stuff about current.
I know. I mean, this was years and years
ago.
Well, let's keep going. Yeah. And I'll try to find that article what I was talking, because I remember reading that a while ago. But let's keep going.
Let's keep it going.
Touching on that subject, Congressman, what do you think the impact of endless wars? What do you think the impact of 20-year wars are having on folks? My son's only been deployed twice, but he serves with people who've been there 6, 7, 8 times over the last 22, 23 years. What kind of impact has foreign policy, do you think, had on mental health and suicide rate in our country?
Okay, that's I'd be very cautious on how I correlate that.
Okay. Yes, sir.
I don't think foreign policy, I mean, the fact that we fought wars, look, I don't have post-traumatic stress. I spent my entire career giving that crap to other people, and I'm really good at it. I get up every morning, and if I'm in a bad mood or I have a bad day, I look at myself in the mirror, I was like, that's life. That's a challenge. Adversity, I was born in the country. I had to get up every morning to feed 70 head of horses, all right? And I'm not saying that I don't have my bad days. My twin brother went through a tremendous amount of horror. He gets up every day, looks himself in the mirror, and is like, today I'm a winner. He doesn't have bad days, he has character building days. We have individual responsibilities in ourselves to stand up and say, look, I'm not gonna let anybody get the best of me, especially the bastards that I put in the dirt, okay? When it comes to 20 years at war and the difference of the wars that we fought, that our forefathers and mothers fought, hey, that's something that we're still trying to figure out. What is it that played, 20 years is a long time to fight. We got this generation of us that are coming out or coming into the VA, and we could very well scuttle it just on mental health problems. Again, what is it that we're missing? I think if you just peel the onion back all the way, we still have to find out why. We're not weaker as a society. We just came out of 2 wars. What is it?
It's a great question. What about the breaking of the social contract and not keeping our promises to veteran health care? Like we've seen in the past. What do you think the impact of that is, Jason?
Yeah, I mean, I've fought in these wars. I joined in '90, and so watching as we've gone overseas consecutively with ambiguous objectives, I'd press a little bit into that and say, the United States as a country has the best men and women serving. They always have, and they will answer the call. And to your point, we'll put the wrong people in the dirt. I too came home without PTSD. I don't think about it as a bad day either. But I know peers of mine that have gone over and over again, and they're burnt out. We leave our families behind, and they're asking questions. What was it for? The problem I think that ties into this is that now we're looking back, having left both Afghanistan and Iraq with what is reasonably kind of a mess. There's a lot of folks that feel they left it all out there, and didn't see what the national strategic policy was. What's the objective today? I talked to guys that were in Syria last year and this year, still asking that question, what are we doing there today? And the answer is, well, 20 years ago, some folks in Congress thought it was a pretty good idea and wrote an authorization to put military into use. Well, that was 20 Congresses ago. And so there's no accountability today for the men and women who are in harm's way. Congressman, I would just put it on your body, the legislative body, to help us maintain accountability over that stretch. 20 years is a long time to do it, and if we don't have a lot to show for it, we're left wondering what's the cause. I was just reading Secretary of Defense, the former, Chris Miller, who talks about it in his book, and he's a senior. He's the guy that ran the Defense Department, and he's wondering the same thing. After a while, you start to get a little bit pissed off about what it's all for if we're just gonna go over there with no cost. So I think that puts your body on the hook to get inside the war powers and make sure that you're actually holding every generation accountable or every president accountable for what we're doing.
Yeah. I get pressed on.
Okay, I get. I'm not so much a fan of Jason either. He is a very much of a politician. But I will tell you this, he does speak a little different in private. He made some sense to me about why Mission Act was so important, is that if we put the money out there and privatize the VA, there would be a competition between the staff and the doctors at the VA on which is better. Okay, better at care, because the one that gets best at care, they're the ones that are going to get more money. They're the ones that are going to have more jobs. Mm-hmm. And, you know, that's how he explained it to me, instead of sitting here doing this political pandering. I was not a very big fan of it. And, you know, Paul Gunderson brought up pretty much at the beginning of this is that he does mention a lot about the VA leniency, to be lenient on the VA. I'm sorry, I'm going to cuss here. It's after 9. Bitch, you've had over 50 years to get. Okay, how much more leniency do you need? 307,000 veterans were killed at the last wait time scandal that you wrote the Mission Act for, and you're sitting there saying leniency? What, are you going to sit there and say leniency for Hitler?
Well, we've shown leniency.
There is no leniency. That's the thing.
We've shown leniency with the VA. We have shown tons of leniency, and they've only gotten worse.
I mean, it's turned into a shit show. Okay.
I'm sorry. I totally agreed with you, Paul. I had to wait till after 9, so I did get banned on you.
After 9.
All right. I'm sorry. I am a little ticked at this. This is pandering? Well, we're gonna do this. We're gonna do this. I'm so sorry. I don't want to hear it anymore. I just want to see it, because right now the VA has spilled over into my daughter's life, who is not a military member. She's a child, and they're dictating to my child. She didn't serve her country. She's a civilian. So no, you don't have the time. You don't have a minute. You don't even have a second, in my mind, to get it right. You've had over 50 years. You know, when was it? It was created under President Lincoln.
Right.
You had more than enough time to get this right. Okay.
So,
wait,
go ahead.
What you got?
I was going to say, so how much of this do you think is also caused by how many people were on the board or whatever, the VA board 20 years ago?
You know, I will say this. If you look
30,
at
40 years, I'll say before, in between Desert Storm and Afghanistan, somewhere back then, a long time ago, before these days. You know, I'm asking that because I just wanted to see if how much it's grown, and the more something like that grows, the more messed up it's going to get.
Okay, I am sick of these freaking Facebook ads. I mean, they're constantly popping up. I don't know the details on that. I'd have to but I do know it was Dwight Was it Eisenhower or was it Franklin Delano Roosevelt?
That did what now?
So when they restructured, I know it was in the Democracy and it was in the 20s where they restructured the VAs and they used State Farm. Remember?
Yeah, I think, here's the thing. I think wasn't it part of the New Deal?
Yeah, that's what it was.
Yeah,
It was
so that was FDR.
Yeah, that would have
that's,
been FDR.
so what he did to structure the VA, he used insurance agents and agencies and used their formats to do it. Unfortunately, what are insurance good at? Trying to deny claims, trying to deny actual care. So, and if we see that, that's how the VA absolutely acts. They act like an insurance company, and they're not. And that's a lot of the breakdown, I guess, in the mindset of a veteran is that they also see themselves, the VA sees themselves as a private business.
Mm-hmm.
They see themselves as an insurance company because we see it all the time. What's your insurance? Your insurance is Tri-West or Optum, but we don't have an insurance card, but yet they do function almost dang near as a civilian would, except we just don't have choice.
Yeah.
Well, believe it or not, Blue Cross Blue Shield is actually supposed to be nonprofit. So,
what do you mean? I don't understand that.
Blue Cross Blue Shield insurance.
They're supposed to be they're supposed to be a nonprofit organization.
Oh wow! But hold on, don't almost all hospitals have like a nonprofit element to it, so they can do tax write-offs?
Well,
yeah,
I'll say
they have to give.
I don't know about that. I've heard that.
Yeah, I think they give out so many medical appointments for free or ER visits for free just to get tax write-offs.
They have to. I mean, that's Bush law right there. You can't refuse seeing a patient. So, anyways, let's get going.
Ukraine a lot, and personally I'm maxed out on Ukraine, right? And I say we should support Ukraine in the training of their soldiers, within the training of our soldiers. We've cut enough money over there to start up 3 countries. And when I'm asked why I support the Ukrainian people, my response is, I've seen murdered women and children. I've seen them laying on the ground. I've seen what ISIS and Al-Qaeda, the Taliban do to people. And I'm all in to prevent that from happening to Ukraine. You hear me say it right now. If China goes to Taiwan, I'm all in on keeping that from happening. I don't want my sons to fight wars that we already had to fight. Don't make no mistake about that. The United States is the big brother. We have been. We've been kicking ass for a long time. That's why people naturally That's why people naturally gravitate towards us. Now, the conflict is, how far do we go until we fold? And that's on me and the rest of my colleagues. So it's very complex. I can't answer a question like, hey, why do you support Ukraine? Or why are we in Syria? If I get down from the operational, strategic, and tactical levels, I can explain to you all day long why it's necessary to have a footprint in certain places. Good. It may never come to fruition, but if it did clack off and we weren't there, what would the American public be saying to the leadership? Why didn't we have anybody there to prevent that from happening? War is complicated.
Great answer. Thank you very much. As we watch our recruitment.
What are your thoughts?
Why are we in Syria? It's about the oil. It's about the poppies.
That's something I hadn't thought about.
I have a lot to do with Saudi Arabia. I remember Saudi Arabia was an ally. But ain't you watched Lawrence of Arabia?
Yeah, watch Lawrence of Arabia.
But of course, times change. Everything's evolved. They're not much of a threat. But the reality is that General Miley said the other day is that America cannot fight wars on 2 fronts. You tell them, Dee.
No, well, they can't.
They can't.
Yeah.
I think like the pull out of Afghanistan, we were talking about it yesterday, is that the pull out of Afghanistan, clearly, even we watched what John Kerry,
John Kirby.
Kirby. Why did I say Kerry? I knew who Kerry is. I hate that guy too. But Kirby clearly
It's the other Kermit the Frog.
Yeah.
The other frog.
Oh my God, he does kind of look like Kermit.
I know. I kind of went a visual there.
See, I do know who you're talking about.
Yeah, it's like he was sitting here making excuses, and he clearly stated and hinted to was that pull out of Afghanistan was so we could help Ukraine. Ukraine was more important.
But then we got Piggy Clinton that was over there plugging for that oil line.
Welcome to the Muppet Show.
Yeah.
But then we got Animal Biden here. He don't have a damn clue.
Yeah.
No, he was not responsible for Afghanistan. I know I'm getting off topic, but y'all have any more?
I know, but it's so easy. It's so easy.
I know. Y'all got anything?
No,
I mean, you got to laugh. Laughter is the best therapy you got.
Exactly. I did want to bring up something though about mental health, if y'all would bear with me on this. So I love the fact that they do mention everything. Everyone is different. Morgan did say that, and he did mention pain and character building days, you know, or things like that. It is very different for a woman. I will say this, when my legs, like with my CRPS or just kicks up hard, I ain't even thinking like that of character, because you're just so desperate of stop, because it's amount of craziness that goes on. I don't know. I will say this. I don't have as many of those. I have bad days. But if I do my stretches, if I do more of a holistic approach, they get better. I know how to control them. I know how to.
I mean, you are you are better than from when I first met you.
Yeah, but I've had a lot of surgery.
Yeah.
From them too.
I mean, it's like when I was diagnosed with fibromyalgia, they put me on every antidepressant they could figure out to shove down my throat, and none of them worked. The pain was still there.
And then gabapentin, and one of the side effects of gabapentin is suicide.
I didn't even go there because of that rating. But I learned that if you stretch and you move and you release the endorphins, the exercise is far better for you. Mm-hmm. You're still going to hurt, but you're not going to hurt as bad.
Right. That's something I'm still working on. I gotta have a good friend named Sarah Lindley Bailey. I believe some of y'all have met her. She's teaching me a little bit more of the holistic things. I have seen some improvements on things, but then sometimes there are days where nothing freaking works.
Yes.
But what I'm learning is that the body is amazing, and it does have the capacity to heal itself.
Well, welcome to the human barometer stage. You'll find the days where nothing works is because your barometer down there is so high and heavy, it just feels like you're a pancake and you're getting pressed and you hurt and you can't stop.
Yeah. This week with this weather.
Oh yeah.
Oh my goodness.
I can see that. I can definitely see that.
I did also like the way that he deals with like mental health and mental health for him is definitely not the way I deal with it. I like the post-traumatic growth method, where you work through it and go through it. And he likes the method of like, let's try this way, and I fall on my face. Oh, lesson learned. Yeah. That's how he works. It's hilarious. And we have to approach it in different ways. And I like the point that, the way the VA works, it's like they give a general for everybody, a general medication, a general this and everything. And no, it's not. It's very individual.
General medication.
It's the hot new pill of the day. It's the flavor.
Yeah, whatever Pfizer's selling that day.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that's a good point. As
Yeah.
pharmaceutical companies.
Mm-hmm.
You're right. You're right. Well, y'all got anything else? Or we get going?
We
Let's
can
go.
keep going.
And enlistment rates among our 18 to 20-year-olds decline. One of the things that I wonder about is when we watch the promises that we're not keeping to take care of our veterans' healthcare system. Do you think that's impacting a young person's decision today? I have an 18-year-old grandson that's a freshman in college. He's watched his dad serve, and that kind of question comes up. He's watching how his stepmom and how his dad are looking. What do we say to this future generation of warriors? Yes, you can trust the promises we're making. Yes, if you get injured or sick due to combat, we're going to take care of you. What kind of impact do you think that makes on this upcoming generation?
I think a little bit like war, that's complex, Russ. I think a lot of folks don't really understand the military life. You know, the percentage of people that are connected is low. And I think less of them understand what happens on the veteran side. So I don't think a lot of folks have that direct knowledge of how that may impact, but I think what they're seeing, because our recruitment levels are extremely low, is they're seeing a country who hasn't really closed out the objective well in the last 20 years. They're seeing our forces stretched out, and they are seeing the battle wounds on the backside. Everybody knows we have suicide problems. Everyone knows that we have some challenges in health. They probably can't articulate them, but overall, I think a lot of folks are saying, if I'm going to serve today, one, I want to know what it's for, and two, I'd like to be on the winning team, right? And we are a winning team, make no mistake about that, but it's not up to the men and the women in the field to take home the victory. That's up to Congress, and it's up to the president. So when we get to that threshold and say, hey, we're going to welcome home our warriors, we kind of want to welcome them home with something that they've done meaningful. And I would just challenge again, not to put you on the spot, it's not singularly, but the body has to be inside that conversation. So the American people in Texas 8 and every other district know what we're stringing the boys and the ladies out for over there. So.
And I am, and we are. And I'm on House Armed Services Committee, so I live and breathe it every day. I had Secretary Austin in front of me last week, and he told me that the retention for the military is highest it's been in 50 years. Which I was pretty pointed at going, and I missed an opportunity to say, is that because the economy is so bad the military members don't want to exit?
Yeah,
I missed an opportunity, and I apologize for that. As far as recruitment, I'm here in the Navy. And actually, he was in front of me. Let me walk that back. He was in front of me. The Navy's attention is on par. The only service that exceeded expectations for their recruitment was the Marines. Good job, Devil Dogs, all day. When you asked that question, this popped into my head, and I tell could it be that the recruitment rate is so low because the mothers and fathers that have fought for so long, or individuals that know military members have fought for so long, they're like, don't do that, because you're going to end up like that.
Yep.
And that too.
Beatrice, my daughter.
So again, I don't know. That just popped in my head when I said that. I mean, I'd be prouder than anything if my son served in the military, but I'd cry every night if they did. You know.
All right.
True.
I would have to say that too. Agree with that. And plus, I mean, look at what they've had to look for the last 30 years of wars going on and stuff. Is they just keep fighting. It's never ending. So it's not like Vietnam. Look at how Vietnam was, and then it was like, okay, they finally came to the conclusion that we're going to do a whatever it's called, respectful withdrawal or whatever it's called. When they left Vietnam, it was,
An evacuation.
Well, they called it something else.
Withdraw.
Yeah.
Withdraw with honor or something like that, you know.
No, it's again.
That's what they call. I mean, it was something like that. What they called it, you know, it's supposed to say, "Oh, we're giving up. We're coming, or we're bringing everybody home." we didn't really lose though. So, we can't lose a war. So
Oh yeah,
That's why they called it a police action.
it's
Well-
I got to know the word non-combative withdrawal. That's
Yeah,
what it is.
non-combative withdrawal.
It should have been full on combative.
Yeah.
So,
I-
flat out.
Oh, sorry.
Go
Go
for
ahead. Well, here's the thing. I think it's very interesting that what Morgan was saying about the retention and recruitment rates about each branch, and I think it's exceptionally interesting that the Marine Corps is exceeding. And
Can I cut you off real
Yeah.
quick? The whole thing where they're not allowed to say miss or ma'am, sir, or all that stuff, that was hogwash. Okay. They do still do yes, sir, no, sir, yes, ma'am, no, ma'am.
mhm. And I think that is actually a cultural phenomenon, like a recent, like alternative culture thing going on.
that's what I was.
You see all like in response to all this wokeism that you see happening in the world, there's those younger men that are paying attention to people like Jordan Peterson and Joe Rogan. And I don't want.
All right. I
Yeah.
would say this. I did notice that more in the military. There was more masculine speakers. It was like right there when Ben Shapiro was starting to take off. And
Yeah.
people were listening to that. And then on top of that is the Commandant's reading list.
Mm-hmm.
You had amazing books, and your sailors on watch. Instead of just standing there watching paint dry, they'd rather read a book. And a lot of people did read a lot of books. I read a lot when I was in.
Well, it's because they didn't have a TV in every barrack
Yeah, they did.
for 'em to watch.
It's just that, there was preference. I didn't like.
I mean, they had 3 channels. I'm sorry, 3 channels.
Well, I did know that another thing is the Army, what he was talking about, you like Trump said, you go woke, you go broke. The Army pushed the most extreme woke
Yes.
policies.
Yes.
Okay.
That is no joke.
That
Yeah,
is-
and it's the same families that are re-enlisting. It's the same sons and daughters that
Yep.
continue the military traditions. I'm sorry, but kick rocks. My dad even said this today, and he said, as of now, and our bloodline has served since the foundation of this country. As of today, we're kick rocks.
Yeah.
We are not. I am not sending my daughter to the military at all. It ends with me.
Dissuade it because, I mean, I have seen some of the videos from the drones that were being flown. I have seen video games that my grandchildren have played, and I sit there and I was in awe because there's not a lot of difference between playing those video games and flying a drone.
Oh, I'll say that right now. When I worked for Lockheed Martin, they had drones there. They were making drones in this little clean room. It used an Xbox controller.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's controlled
And
by
they wonder why there are so many misfortunate events involving people taking other innocent lives.
Well, I agree and disagree with that because they said the same thing about video games whenever I was a kid, music and everything else.
boys
But
are
it-
different than
But
girls.
how many kids back in your day were ADDHD or ADD?
a bunch.
Here's a drug. Here's a drug. Here's a drug. Play your video games.
Yeah, I had a problem. The thing is that a lot of people used video games as babysitters instead of disciplining their child.
Yeah, that's true.
So that's actually, I would blame that on the parent, not the video game.
Thing is, as boys, if we weren't playing
Well-
video games, we were outside killing ants. So
Yeah.
something was
When
done.
I was a kid, and I'm fixing to really date my age. When I was a kid, you were seen, you were not heard. You were outside after breakfast. You came in at lunch, got your lunch, your sandwich, your bowl of beans and cornbread, and you're back outside. You came in when the the light come on outside.
No, it was still like that when I was a kid. So
Like
you're not
that when I was a
dating.
kid.
You're not dating.
That's the way I raised my kids, but my grandkids, not so much.
Yeah,
You
had
see,
a
I'm
lot of-
outside all the time. So you see, I was always having to stay outside. So you see, that's why I'm still outside all the time. So
Say that.
My-
times.
I will say this: there is a difference between my children's parenting styles. My daughter is terrified to let her children outside, and my
Yeah.
son's like, "Get outside, and I'll see you later."
I agree with Paul on that too.
Yeah.
So there probably was a lot more going on that we just didn't hear about, or because then you had like the
No, we were
newspaper.
holy terrors back then.
Well, that's what I'm
Nobody-
saying.
if- My mom always said, if they take her, they'll bring her back. I promise.
You know, another thing is that we had a different dynamic as well. You could play things like cowboys and Indians back then. Remember that? Oh, but can't do that right now because it's PC.
You could
Or you could
climb
do
trees.
Cops and robbers.
You can't climb trees anymore because they're
Your
in danger.
HOA.
Yeah, your HOA.
Yeah,
will get on
you
board.
can't have the trees anymore. You can't climb them or put anything up in your yard or anything else.
There's a government.
Hey, if we could find a tree with a good, healthy vine on it, we were Tarzan and Jane.
Oh, that's how we were too.
Did you drink? We drink out of the water hose.
Yeah.
I remember doing that.
We learned to leave the water hose running for a little bit before you drink out of it.
Yes.
Yeah. Unless you wanted a hot cup of tea.
No, there was always a younger kid that hadn't done it yet.
Oh, it was always fun. Yeah, turn the water on. Didn't turn the water hose on the person who turned it on.
That's what happened.
Yeah.
I know. I was on the end of that at one time, and you pass on.
So then you learn to kink the hose
We were-
and say, I don't know.
Just let it go.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I remember that.
You get your ass whooped for wasting water.
Yeah. Well, we lived on a well, so
You knew better.
But there's a difference in the mentality and the parenting skills of today than back when I was a kid.
me
Yeah,
too.
absolutely.
Therefore, we have more kids who are not allowed to go outside and experience and roam and be adventuresome. They are told to stay in the room or watch TV or whatever. Maybe go outside and play in the backyard for a few minutes. And if they have too much rambunctious energy, we put them into counseling and drugs.
Yeah.
Okay. Those drugs, I was looking at some of the side effects. They cause cancer.
Yeah.
They cause tumors.
I know, and that's the problem. Like a lot of what's going on with the VA is that, like at the opioid crisis, there's several things that happened there where the VA was actually one of the foundations of the opioid crisis.
I believe that.
So, but anyways, it's a great topic, Sally. We could actually go off on a whole nother show.
Oh yeah,
on that
we
tangent.
could.
Yeah, I
But-
know, but I mean that's
Let's
part of
get to
the
this one.
issues.
Well, we'll get on through that.
Go for it.
All right, let's get going.
Well, we're coming up on time here, so what I don't want to do. Okay. One of the questions we got, John Torres. Sorry that I had trouble reading the name here. I hope I got that right. Is we understand that the VA has decided to roll back the 2017 VA Accountability Act, which allowed for the first time civil service employees to be fired if they were caught in malfeasance like they were in the 2014 Phoenix VA hospital scandal. And so I wasn't aware of the fact that the VA had legislative powers that Congress has, but they've decided that that is something they're not going to do or enforce anymore. And so I'm just curious,
I haven't heard that.
Yeah, okay.
Hold on. I'm like, we're
Yeah, you weren't at that
Give me that
committee.
mic. Yeah, listen, this one is, I'm just going to do a quick story too. When I came into the administration, I was under Acting Secretary Peter O'Rourke. And one of the things that got him in trouble with VA was firing people who weren't doing their jobs. And I want to tell you guys, up on the 10th floor of the Department of Veterans Affairs, one block up from the White House, that stirred up a hornet's nest. When you start firing long-term civil service, so when we built a whistleblower act, it took a long time to get an office stood up that was going to oversee the internal workings of the system to make sure that career seniors weren't just phoning it in. Because at VA, you can always fire people at the mid-level or the low level. That's easy. Happens all the time. But once you climb up above a GS-13, GS-14, you start looking at SES roles, that's the equivalent to general, you can't touch them. So when Secretary Rourke and then following Secretary Wilkie put the heat on the bureaucracy, it was in the form of the Whistleblower Accountability Act. And I'm going to tell you, I know the people that ran that office, it was a hard office. And everybody that went through that office got hammered. And now Secretary McDonough is talking about rolling that back so they're not going to use the act itself or the legislation.
Talking about it or has done it?
They've announced that that's their plan. It was a week ago
Okay,
Friday.
I was gonna say, because I have not heard this at all, and they
Yeah.
have to go through us in order to
They
do
didn't
that.
want you to know, Morgan. I'm so sorry.
I promise you.
So all
That's
I
not
can tell
good to
you,
me.
all I can tell you is bureaucracy is creative and they got their own ninjas. So that means that folks like you have got to keep eyes on things like that because they don't want to do it. And if there's any mistake about it, just run the records back. You'll see it.
All right, we'll make sure we forward that document over to you. It's not widely known. That's why they announced it on the Friday
On a
evening.
hearing. Guys, we pushed the link to this hearing
Yes.
below a while ago.
All right, I wanted to leave some time for you guys to kind of put in some closing thoughts. I've dominated the time with questions. Most of the questions that I have here were what I tried to incorporate into what I asked y'all. But I just wanted to give you guys, let's start with the Congressman. Or you want Jason to go first, or would you like to back clean up? Let's let the Congressman back clean up.
Okay,
Jason.
yeah.
So,
Well, first of all, I appreciate everything you've done, both in service and now in service again. Having studied a lot, neuroscience and cognitive abilities, the question I'd ask, you know the special operations community, and these are the men and women that really have borne the heaviest part of the burden in the last, especially 15 years. Special operations undergoes a lot more trauma, near concussive traumas, detonations, kicking in the doors, gunshots, all that. Are there special things being considered to take a look at things like operator syndrome and the shearing sort of trauma?
You read my paper. You must be the only one.
Blood says hi.
This is what we know. In the past decade, post-traumatic stress and traumatic brain injury were characterized almost identical. They were treated through the VA and active duty service members the same way. They are completely polar opposite of each other. You cannot treat a traumatic brain injury with the same cognitive modalities that you would treat post-traumatic stress. You can't do that. And as we educate ourselves and we learn more and more about the brain, we're able to separate what a TBI. And most people have heard of mild, medium, and severe TBI. Fair enough? Heard of the 3 levels? We're around 32 levels of traumatic brain injury as we know of right now. And that was the last marker I heard, and that was a year ago. Okay? And when it comes to service members, special operator service members who are exposed to blast injuries, repeated blast injuries over and over again. You have what's called micro tear. Every time you fire, law enforcement, every time you fire a weapon system, you get a micro tear in your prefrontal lobe. So after 20 years of firing your weapon system, you come home and your wife's like, I hate you because you're not the same person I married. There's a reason for that. All right? And again, since we don't have a cure for brain injury or brain disease, what we have to do is we have to create coping mechanisms for ourselves in order to increase our quality of life up until we figure that out. And the paper, Operator Syndrome, that Jason mentioned, it characterizes what soft goes through correlated to what conventional go through, because we fire weapon systems, we fire Gustavs and law rockets 20, 30, 40 times in a matter of 20 minutes. Okay, you're supposed to fire 2 in 24 hours. And the concussions that we receive over and over and over again is what some researchers are saying is leading to the issues of suicide, of depression, of anxiety, all those little cognitive nomenclatures that live under the post-traumatic stress umbrella. Again, it's something we have to figure out once we learn how the brain works.
Maybe I'd leave with maybe a final sort of summation or comment. I think I know this is the greatest country in the world, history of the world. United States of America, by far,
Yeah, the only thing I
we have
agree
the
with
greatest birth rate ever. But to keep it strong, it really does require citizen engagement. Our founders didn't leave us with a autopilot system. And the system itself is complex. And so every single one of you that took time to come out tonight, number one, I'm humbled, I'm honored that you did. The fact that we can sit here with our elected representatives and ask questions, hard questions, easy questions, whatever, that's a beautiful country. Don't take it for granted. Organizations like Concerned Veterans for America, others that are out there really care to make sure that the folks inside DC are not isolated from what you go through on a daily basis. When it comes down to veterans, foreign policy, healthcare, VA, keeping those things from going completely south requires a lot of action. It requires your voice. So when you feel it, when you're feeling a little bit kicked in the guts or whatever, reach out. I'm glad that you put it out there and you're willing to take feedback. We've got to do that across every district in this country. And that's how we survive the republic and make it greater for our children. And Congressman Luttrell, I'd love to hear your thoughts on your district. You've got great people here, it's obvious.
Oh, yeah, welcome to heaven, buddy. We got it.
I'm sorry, Morgan.
Like
I know we
our
put you
veteran
through
community is
stuff.
tough. They're hard to wrangle sometimes.
I know
There's
I
about
do.
5 or 6 of them in here. I love to get in front of because they let me know exactly how they feel.
Yeah, Paul, you know who he's talking about on that one.
Never forget, as a veteran, this is your country. You went out to spill blood for it. And you're looked at differently in a good way. You are. When I'm up in DC and the other members, and then we'll have, DC is just flooded with, because they've opened the doors back up, right? The nation's able to come back. And as I'm walking through DC, people will recognize me, they'll come up and they'll chat me up about my service and thank me. And one thing that I've come to realize, which I always kept my head down and my ears closed, because I didn't want any notoriety, and I've got a famous brother. But anyway, what I tell you is that continue to be proud of what you did and what you were doing, and don't ever forget, if you're willing to put your life on the line in a uniform to serve your country overseas, you damn sure have the right to stand over here and be the voice of it. Okay? Now, veterans are, and I'm going to categorize us in I'm going to speak generally about all of us right now. We like to be quiet. We like to be left alone. We don't ever like to be pushed around, and we don't ever like anybody to disrespect our other veterans in front of us. Okay, that's a fair assessment, I think. And when it comes to things that frustrate you in the VA system, and this is what I've learned while I've been up there, your voice is very powerful, as I said. But there will be a time that if your voice becomes too powerful, if you will, it causes those who don't understand us to shut down. It's incumbent on us to remain calm, cool, collected when we address those that are working for our betterment, okay? And the reason I say that is because I've lost my temper before. And that is not combat effective, right? That is no way to lead. All of us in the military, you know that. If a superior came to you and just started belittling and berating you, what did you do? Besides come to attention if you're in the Marine Corps, you shut down, okay? I'm not speaking for everyone, but the majority of people are they're trying to help us, okay? There's always those bad actors, but I like to drive that point home. It's like, give them what they want, give them what they're asking for, remain calm. If you're not getting what you need, you call me. And then it's my job to take it from there. That's what I was elected to do, okay? I used to think that you weren't allowed to walk up. When Congressman Brady was walking around this year, I didn't think you could go talk to him. I didn't. As a military man, I was like, the congressman, I'm not allowed to talk to that guy. I can't even talk to a general. How am I supposed to talk to a congressman? It is your responsibility to walk up to me every single time you see me. I work for you. I'm your voice. I'm the voice of 800,000 people in Washington, D.C. I am. And if you don't tell me what you want to say, I won't know. Okay?
So that's the end of it. We get to a lot of hooting and hollering and praising everything. And I will say this, just to let everyone know, I know there was a lot of questions and cue cards there, but everyone that went up and talked to Morgan Luttrell, he gave them the time. He did handle their issues. And here's the thing I have in response to Morgan Luttrell. You're the first one who's ever said anything like that, because my congressman beforehand in the state of Texas, or my congresswoman, even my senator didn't give me the time of day. And it's been years. And a lot of veterans have felt that. I have never heard a single representative, even in the state reps, ever say we could come and talk to them freely. All I hear is that's a federal issue. Oh, that's a VA issue. I have nothing to do with that.
And we need more congressmen and representatives just like him.
Yeah.
Yep.
Absolutely.
The problem. Excuse me.
Bless you.
Yeah, thank you. The problem is that it's people like us, a lot of these veterans have lost faith in the country itself. They've stopped voting. They've stopped voting, and they won't go to their congressman anymore.
I could see why. I mean, to be honest with you, I could see why. You know.
Yeah. I
was going to say, just from doing some short searches on that, it looks like a lot of it is getting in the news more. I know I was looking up a channel here in Florida, and they've got probably 15 stories in the last year about against the VA. One of them's a lady that I think something happened to her husband because they wouldn't treat him for chronic pain and pretty much wrote him off.
Yeah. And then you go to their senators, and then you go to your congressman, and then they wait several days. Like I've been almost waiting a year for Ted Cruz. I went down to his Austin office last week, and, they were like, oh, we didn't even know about it. And it's just because, of course, you know about it. And they're like, you have to fill out, the public, privacy release.
Yeah.
And everything. And then they look back at it. Oh, wow, you filled out a lot of them. Then they try to accuse me, well, you didn't fill out one this last time. I was like, dude, I was standing in the office. I have gone into that office every single time. And that's the important why you guys go to the office. They will have a sign-in book. Sign in. Because when you sign in and say, no, I was there that day, check the log, they just go, oh, shit, she was. That's how it works. It's holding them accountable.
That's how you hold people accountable. It's old school ink and paper. That's it.
Right.
Well, Sean, it was a pleasure. As always, Paul, it was always a pleasure to have you all here this evening. But it is coming up on 10 o'clock. And I'd like to thank you, Chad, and thank you, Mama Sally, for your coming on with us tonight. Hey, guys, just to let you know, we do have another Morgan Luttrell town hall about to come up. And we did go to it just the other day, the second one for another community. And, oh, my gosh, it turned into a stand-up comedy show. And please stick around for tomorrow. We went in front of another legislator, Lizzie Fletcher. And
awesome.
We'll be coming in for a town hall tomorrow night to discuss Lizzie Fletcher. So y'all, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you again, Mama Sally, Chad. Do y'all have any final thoughts to say?
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, we really appreciate it. I don't have anything else to say. It's just reiterating. You need to be involved in the way your country works and the way your city and state, and be voting and figuring out who your representatives are, and you need to hold them accountable.
Okay, I will say one more thing before we go because I figured out it was important. If you are a veteran and you are not in Congressman Morgan Luttrell's district, call him anyways. He will get in contact with your congressman or your senator. Okay, he is on the House Committee of Veteran Affairs. He's on the Foreign Affairs Committee. So that's active duty. That's also veterans. Give him a call. All right. Drop the logbook. If you're uncomfortable with doing that, send us an email. Send us an email at the logbook@protonmail.com.
Yeah.
Or you can sit here and shoot us a message on Facebook. Shoot us a message. Wow, heck, Chad, right? You got one from Rumble, did you not? There's Common Denominator Network too.
Yep.
Just shoot us a message. We'll get you in contact with the people that will help you. But at that point, thank you, Chad, again. Thank you, Mama Sally.
Thank
you, our audience, for joining us tonight. Have a very good
Easter weekend.
Yes. And
Right.
Happy Passover.
Happy Passover too.
so God bless and take care, everyone.
Have a good night.
Now let's set the record straight. There's no argument over the choice between peace and war, but there's only one guaranteed way you can have peace, and you can have it in the next second. Surrender. Admittedly, there's a risk in any course we follow other than this, but every lesson of history tells us that the greater risk lies in appeasement. And this is the specter our well-meaning liberal friends refuse to face, that their policy of accommodation is appeasement. And it gives no choice between peace and war, only between fight or surrender. If we continue to accommodate, continue to back and retreat, eventually we have to face the final demand, the ultimatum. And what then? When Nikita Khrushchev has told his people, he knows what our answer will be. He has told them that we're retreating under the pressure of the Cold. Someday, when the time comes to deliver the final ultimatum, our surrender will be voluntary, because by that time, we will have been weakened from within spiritually, morally, and economically. He believes this because from our side he's heard voices pleading for peace at any price, or better read than dead, or as one commentator put it, he'd rather live on his knees than die on his feet. And therein lies the road to war, because those voices don't speak for the rest of us. You and I know and do not believe that life is so dear and peace so sweet as to be purchased at the price of chains and slavery. If nothing in life is worth dying for, when did this begin? Just in the face of this enemy? Or should Moses have told the children of Israel to live in slavery under the Pharaohs? Should Christ have refused the cross? Should the patriots at Concord Bridge have thrown down their guns and refused to fire the shot heard round the world? The martyrs of history were not fools. And our honored dead, who gave their lives to stop the advance of the Nazis, didn't die in vain. Where then is the road to peace? Well, it's a simple answer after all. You and I have the courage to say to our enemies, there is a price we will not pay. There is a point beyond which they must not advance. Winston Churchill said the destiny of man is not measured by material computations. When great forces are on the move in the world, we learn they're spirits, not animals. And he said there's something going on in time and space and beyond time and space, which, whether we like it or not, spells duty. You and I have a rendezvous with destiny. We'll preserve for our children this, the last best hope of men on earth, or we'll sentence them to take the last step into 1,000 years of darkness.